The stars were quiet that night, or at least that's how it seemed from the edge of the Galactic Empire. A small patrol ship floated alone near the dark zone, where no traffic ever passed and no life signals were expected. Commander Relth leaned, back in his chair, yawning. The lights on the console blinked slowly, meaning nothing unusual. His crew of 7 was bored. Boredom was common out here. Nothing ever happened in the black. That changed in a second. A sharp beep echoed through the bridge. One of the younger officers, barely out of training, sat up straight. His eyes widened. "Commander, I have something, a signal. But it's weird." Relth straightened in his seat, his relaxed posture gone. "Show me." The officer pushed. A button. A low sound filled the room. It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't even a standard language. It sounded mechanical, repeating, but calm. "Location?" Relth asked. The officer hesitated. "Dead zone, Sector 7G. It's coming from inside the gravity shadow of that collapsed star." That didn't make sense. Nothing survived that. Close to a dead star. Radiation, gravity pull, and crushed light made it impossible for anything to operate there. "Could be an echo," another officer offered. "Old signal, bouncing." Relth didn't believe that. He felt something in his gut, something wrong. He tapped the ship-wide channel. "All crew, battle readiness. I want eyes on that signal. Launch a probe, now." The probe flew silently into the dark zone. Everyone on the ship watched the screen as it passed through radiation clouds and light warping. Distortions. For a moment nothing happened, then the probe stopped. No explosion, no impact. It just stopped moving. The screen flickered. For a second they saw something. A shape, large, long, dark metal. No lights, no energy signature, but definitely not a rock. Before the feed died, it rotated, slowly, and pointed directly at the probe. The signal stopped. Silence returned. Nobody spoke for a full minute. "What was that?" whispered the youngest officer. Relth said nothing. He was staring hard at the freeze frame of the shape. It was unlike anything the Empire had catalogued. Then an old voice behind him broke the silence. "I've seen that before," said Technician Sarvek, the oldest member on the ship. "Not with my eyes, but in old records, long forgotten." Everyone turned. "Speak," Relth ordered. Sarvek's voice was slow, heavy. "That is a human warship." The room turned cold. "That's impossible," one officer said. "Humans were lost ages ago. Their world, Earth, was cut off. A death world. They couldn't have survived." Sarvek didn't answer. He only looked at the screen. Relth gave the order. "Send an emergency message to command, full priority. We may have a hostile unknown vessel inside Imperial space." As they prepared the transmission, the sensors beeped again. The dark object was moving. Fast. It accelerated in silence, no sound, no lights. It passed the dead star like it wasn't there. Then it zipped straight past 2 outposts, both of which lost contact instantly. No explosion. Just silence. Relth tried to hail the object. No response. He sent warning signals. No response. It wasn't attacking. It wasn't answering. It was heading deeper into Imperial space. By the time command received the message, the ship was already far beyond the border. It didn't follow any known path. It just moved, silent and unstoppable, toward the Empire's inner systems. Panic began. A high-level alert spread across the region. The Empire had not seen war in a long time. Most of its strength was concentrated at the center. The border regions were not ready for something this fast, this advanced. The ship didn't fire. It didn't slow down. It only observed. Cameras on a mining station caught a glimpse of it as it passed. No windows, no crew visible. A long metal body with strange armor. Smooth yet strong. Alien-looking, but very much human in design. Old military officers who had studied human history were called out of retirement. The oldest among them confirmed it. This was a warship, built by humans, but far more advanced than anything from the past. The speed, the silence, the movement. It was not normal. Back on the patrol ship, Commander Relth watched the object vanish. From sensors. "What do they want?" one officer asked. Relth didn't answer. The object, the human warship, was now out of range, but the fear it left behind wasn't. On the capital world of the Galactic Empire, the High Council gathered. News of the ship spread faster than light. Panic swept across star systems. No one knew why the humans had come. No one even knew how they got here. But everyone agreed on one thing. If that ship had wanted to attack, nothing would have stopped. And if that was just one ship, what else was coming? In the far distance, beyond the reach of Empire scanners, the warship slowed. Inside its command center, a human officer stood quietly, observing. He spoke only one sentence. Phase 1. Complete. Awaiting next signal. Behind him, the rest of the crew didn't speak. They didn't celebrate. They watched. Silent. Patient. They had come not to conquer. Not yet. But the message had been delivered. The humans had returned. And they had not come alone. The meeting room inside the Galactic Council headquarters was filled with silence. The members sat in their tall golden chairs staring at the wide display screen in front of them. The image frozen on the screen showed the mysterious ship that had entered their space just days ago. It was unlike anything in their records. No clear markings, no signal patterns, and no communication. Yet it moved with purpose and power. They all knew what it meant. "This cannot be real," one council member whispered, breaking the silence. But no one responded. In the center of the room, Grand Minister Jor-El stood with his arms behind his back. He had served the Empire for over 300 cycles. He had faced rebellions, black market threats, and rogue planets, but nothing like this. Nothing like what they were now facing. "Are we certain this is human in origin?" he finally asked. An intelligence officer stepped forward. "Yes, Minister. Multiple confirmations. Design, heat patterns, propulsion type. It all matches the old data. Except, it's far more advanced." Another member shook his head. "Humans were supposed to be gone. Their world was left behind. Our ancestors believed they wouldn't survive." "They didn't just survive," the officer replied. "They've grown." The council erupted in soft murmurs. Some suggested immediate talks. Others wanted to prepare the fleet. Some even argued to pretend it never happened. But Jor-El raised his hand, and the room fell quiet. Once again. "They didn't harm anyone," he said. They entered, observed, and vanished. One counselor leaned forward. "Perhaps it's a test or a warning." In the background, the intelligence officer played the short footage again. The ship passed through 2 outposts. There was no damage, but both stations went dark. Later scans showed their systems had been shut down, completely, but nothing was broken. Just turned off, as if someone had flipped a switch from the outside. The crews were fine, confused but unharmed. That made it worse. That meant the humans had the ability to shut down entire systems without firing a single shot. A cold realization spread in the room. They don't need to fight to win. Someone whispered. Jor-El took a breath. "We need to know what they want." Far from the council chambers, in a deep part of space, the same human ship was slowing down again. It had stopped near a lonely moon that circled a dead planet. The moon had no life, no buildings, nothing of value. But the humans dropped a pod, from their ship anyway. The pod landed softly and opened. Out came several humans, moving fast, setting up something on the surface. Unbeknownst to them, or maybe they knew and didn't care, a small alien scout ship was watching from a distance. Inside, the alien scout Captain Drevek adjusted his vision scope. "They're building something," he said. "Looks like a communication dish, maybe a base." His second officer, nervous but curious, asked, "Should we alert the fleet?" "No," Drevek said. "We watch, we learn. If this is the start of something bigger, The council will need every detail. As they continued watching, a strange thing happened. One of the humans looked up, directly toward their location. There were no signals, no scans, no obvious reason how he could have seen them, but he had. The human simply nodded once, then turned back to his work. At that exact moment, the scout ship's systems flickered. Lights dimmed. Engines slowed. Everything still worked, but not the same. "We've been seen," Drevek whispered. He gave the order to leave immediately. They didn't want to push their luck. But before leaving, he sent a final data packet to the council, a full recording of what they had witnessed. When the council received the recording, silence returned. No one had asked the humans to return. No one had invited them. But they were back, and they were not hiding. Grand Minister Jural stood again and looked at the faces around the room. "The time of pretending they don't exist is over," he said. "We must speak to them." An ambassador, pale and quiet, raised her hand. "How do you speak to someone who says nothing?" Before anyone could answer, another message came through. It was not from a scout, not from the fleet, not even from any known source. It was a simple signal, received directly on the council's protected channel. The voice was calm, clear, human. "We are here only to observe. We will not engage unless engaged first, but we remember. No threats, no warnings, just that last sentence, we remember." The room felt colder. "We need answers," Jural said, so they sent a message back. It took hours to craft, polite, careful, respectful. They asked who the humans were, what they wanted, if peace was possible. They received no reply. But then something unexpected happened. A new signal was detected. It came from the moon where the pod had landed. A door opened in space. Not a ship, not a gate. Something else. A strange pulse of energy, like a heartbeat through the stars. It only lasted a second. But it had never been seen before. The council ordered their best scientists to study it. Still, none of them could understand how it worked. No known science explained it. No alien species had used anything like it before. "They have made something new," one of the scientists said, voice shaking. "Something beyond us." That night across the Empire, rumors spread. Whispers of human return. Stories of silent ships and strange devices. Some called them ghosts. Some called them guardians. Others called them a problem, but no one called them weak. In deep space, the human ship remained silent, watching. Inside, a new signal appeared on their screen. It came from Earth. The officer read it and gave a soft nod. He turned to his crew. "Phase 2 begins," he said. No cheers, no smiles, just silence and waiting. The small scout ship slipped quietly through the dense clouds surrounding the moon. Its engines hummed softly, barely noticeable even to the sensitive ears of its crew. Captain Drevek stared out of the thick glass window, watching the humans below. What they were building looked simple at first. A few structures, communication arrays, and what seemed like defensive units. But there was an unmistakable order to their work. It wasn't just a temporary camp, it was a base, well hidden and carefully constructed. Drevek's heart raced with questions. How had humans, thought to be lost to a harsh world centuries ago, returned with such skill and technology? Why had they chosen this quiet moon, so close to the Empire's borders, to settle again? Were they peaceful observers, or something else? He decided to take a small team for a closer look. They landed under the shadow of a jagged ridge, just out of sight from the human base. The air was thin, the moon's surface covered in gray dust and sharp rocks. The silence was heavy. Drevek's squad moved slowly, every step cautious, every sound muffled. As they approached, something caught Drevek's eye. A human figure stood near the edge of the base, scanning the sky as if expecting something. The human's face was calm but alert, with eyes that seemed to see far beyond what was possible. Drevek signaled to hold position, not wanting to be spotted just yet. Suddenly, the human turned and looked straight at their hiding spot. Drevek felt a chill. It was as if the human had sensed their presence without any sensors or technology. The human raised a hand briefly, a silent signal that was hard to understand, and then disappeared behind the base. Curiosity mixed with caution. Drevek's team moved closer, slipping inside the base through a small entrance hidden behind large, metal crates. Inside, the atmosphere changed. The air was clean, the lights soft and warm, and strange machines hummed with life. The humans inside worked efficiently, speaking in quiet voices. But when they saw Drevek's team, the base fell, silent. The humans raised their hands in peace, showing no sign of aggression. One of the humans stepped forward, an officer wearing a simple uniform marked with a symbol unfamiliar to Drevek, but clearly important. His voice was calm and measured. "You are not enemies. We expected you might come," the human said. Drevek lowered his weapon slowly, confused. "Why are you here?" he asked. The human officer nodded toward the outside world. "We are here because we survived. We were forgotten by this galaxy, left to face a world that should have ended us. We learned to adapt, to protect, to watch. But we do not seek conflict." Drevek looked around the base, noticing the advanced technology mixed with the roughness of a world that had demanded survival above all else. "How long have you been here?" he asked. "Long enough to change," the human replied. "Long enough to build what you see." A tense moment passed before the human officer spoke again. "We have a message for your leaders, a warning, not of war, but of respect." Drevek felt the weight of the words. He knew the Empire's response could be dangerous. The humans were not the weak survivors they once imagined. They were something new. As the human handed over a small data device, Drevek's comms crackled. The Council had sent orders. No violence, no aggression, but full surveillance. The squad left the base. Quietly, the message secure. Back on the scout ship, Drevek studied the data device carefully. It contained history's warnings and a plea for peace. It spoke of betrayal, survival, and a promise. Humanity would defend itself, but preferred peace. As the scout ship returned to Imperial space, Drevek felt a strange respect for the humans. They were no longer just a forgotten species. They were a reminder of resilience and strength. But the Council was divided. Some wanted to trust the message. Others feared it. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see if the humans would remain watchers or become something more. The vast chamber of the Imperial Council was colder than usual that morning. The polished floors reflected the worried faces, of those gathered faces that had not seen peace in many cycles, but now seemed gripped by uncertainty. Outside, the stars twinkled like distant promises, but inside, tension filled every corner. Grand Minister Jaral stood before the council, the small data device from the humans resting on the central table. It pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, trapped inside a box. The room was silent save for the soft hum of the device and the whispers that floated around. Jaral cleared his throat and began. "We have received a message from the humans. It is a mixture of history and warning. They speak of survival, of lessons learned in the harshest of places. They say they come in peace, but they are prepared." A younger council member, eager and sharp, interrupted. "Minister, if they are prepared, why not attack? Why not destroy us while we are weak?" Jaral looked at him, eyes steady. "Because they remember. They remember what the galaxy was and what it has become. They have not forgotten the past." The message told stories of humanity's struggle on a hostile world, of how they had been left behind and forced to adapt. It spoke of ancient betrayals, of allies lost and enemies made, but also of hope. The humans claimed their strength came, not from hatred but from determination to protect what was theirs. Suddenly, the room's communication panel beeped urgently. A scout ship had just returned with new data from the human base. The screen lit up, showing images of strange structures on the moon. Not weapons, but something else. Energy nodes, linked in a vast network. "These are not weapons of war," the chief scientist explained. "They are defensive, yes, but more importantly, they are communication devices, a new kind of network we have never seen before." One counselor frowned. Are they preparing to isolate themselves? To block our sensors? The scientist nodded. It seems so. They want to hide but also to listen, to watch. As the council debated, in the depths of space, the human ship moved slowly toward a distant star system. Its purpose was clear: to send a message beyond the Empire's borders, a message of warning and peace. Inside the ship, Captain Hayes studied the data coming in. The humans knew the Empire feared them, but they also knew the Empire was divided. Some wished for war, others for understanding. Hayes thought about the young officer on the scout ship, the one who had met Dravak. They had hoped for peace, but they were prepared for any outcome. Suddenly, the ship's communication panel blinked. An encrypted message arrived. It was from Earth. Phase 3 begins, the message said. No explanation followed. Hayes stared at the screen. This was bigger than any of them had imagined. The humans were moving forward step by step, and the galaxy was watching. Back on the Imperial Council, Grand Minister Joral made a decision. We must send envoys. We will not attack, but we will not ignore what is happening. We must know the humans' true intentions. The council agreed, though not without hesitation. The envoys prepared for their journey, nervous but determined. They would face the unknown, walk into the shadow of a long-lost species returned from the dead. As their ship left the docks, the stars seemed to watch silently. In the distance, the human warship paused, its crew waiting. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: the story of humanity and the Empire was only just beginning. The envoy ship drifted silently through the vastness of space, its hull gleaming under distant starlight. Inside, Ambassador Lyra sat quietly in the command room, her hands folded but her mind racing. She had been chosen for this mission because of her calm demeanor and experience with delicate negotiations, but nothing could have prepared her for meeting the humans, an ancient race thought lost, now suddenly returned with power and mystery. The silence in the ship was thick. The crew was tense, each member aware that this journey could change everything. They were heading straight into the unknown, toward a human vessel whose intentions were unclear. Was this a peace mission, or was it a prelude to something else? When the ship approached the coordinates given by human signals, the massive silhouette of the human warship appeared. Unlike the Empire's sleek and intimidating vessels, the human ship had a rough, almost worn appearance. Yet it radiated strength and purpose like a warrior who had survived countless storms. Lyra's ship docked gently. As the airlocks opened, the human officers waited. There was no grand display, no overwhelming show of force, just quiet, steady eyes watching from behind a calm facade. The leader of the humans, Commander Hayes, greeted them. His voice was steady but carried the weight of long years of hardship. Welcome, Hayes said simply. We've been expecting you. The first hours were filled with cautious conversation. Lyra learned of humanity's exile to a distant, harsh world where they had to rebuild without allies or aid. She heard about their technology, developed not for conquest but for survival. Their warship was a symbol of that struggle. Strong, yes, but built to protect, not to attack. Hayes spoke of the humans' desire to be understood, not feared. We want peace, he said, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. Lyra nodded, appreciating the honesty. But deep down she knew the Empire's council would be divided on this. Some would see this as a threat. Others might see a chance for alliance. Over the next days, the two sides exchanged knowledge. The humans shared glimpses of their technology, powerful shields, advanced sensors, and a network that could link ships across light years instantly. The Empire envoys showed maps and reports explaining the current state of the galaxy, the Council's fears, and the politics that ruled their world. Despite the tension, moments of genuine connection emerged. Lyra found herself admiring the humans' resilience and clarity of purpose. Hayes respected the Council's cautious approach. Then came the turning point. A distress signal erupted suddenly on the human ship's communication panel. The message was faint but urgent. An outpost on the edge of Imperial space was under unusual attack. The attackers were unknown, but their tactics were strange, almost unlike anything the Empire had seen before. Hayes turned to Lyra. This could be a test, or a warning. The envoys and crew decided to act quickly. Together they prepared to move toward the outpost. The journey was tense. Both sides knew that any mistake could lead to disaster. As they neared the outpost, the true nature of the threat became clear. Strange energy pulses disabled ships, but no weapons were fired. Systems failed silently, as if an invisible hand was reaching out to disable rather than destroy. Hayes and Lyra realized this was a new kind of challenge, one that required cooperation, not conflict. Working together, human and Imperial engineers combined their skills. They found ways to counter the pulses, restoring power step by step. The outpost was saved. For a moment, hope flickered. Back on the human ship, Hayes looked at Lyra. "Maybe this is the beginning," he said quietly. Lyra nodded. A beginning of trust. The galaxy held its breath, watching two ancient powers reach toward each other, uncertain, wary, but willing to try. The story was far from over, but for the first time, a fragile hope had taken root. The silence of the command room was broken by the soft hum of distant stars. Ambassador Lyra sat across from Commander Hayes, both deep in thought as the events of the past weeks settled like a quiet storm inside their minds. What had begun as a cautious meeting had transformed into a tentative partnership, fragile but real. The Imperial Council awaited the envoy's report. They expected details of tension, threats, or outright conflict. Instead, Lyra brought news of cooperation and hope, a story few believed possible. Yet beneath the surface, uncertainties lingered. The strange energy attacks had stopped, but no source was found. Who was behind them and why? The question hung in the air like a shadow waiting to be chased away. Lyra and Hayes agreed they needed to understand this new threat. They planned an expedition to investigate the border sectors where the attacks had occurred, bringing together a team of humans and Imperials, blending technology and knowledge like never before. The journey was long, but the crew's spirits remained high. Conversations replaced silence, friendships began to form, and old prejudices slowly melted away under the glow of shared purpose. As the ship crossed the border into unknown space, sensors picked up faint signals, echoes of something ancient, yet unfamiliar. The team prepared cautiously, aware that whatever lay ahead could redefine their understanding of the galaxy. Upon arrival, the landscape was stark, a silent expanse of rocky moons and dark clouds. The team landed near a forgotten ruin, long lost to history but alive with strange energy readings. Exploring carefully, they discovered technology far older than either the Empire or humanity had known, an artifact of a civilization that had vanished eons ago yet still pulsing with power. This ancient device was the source of the energy pulses, an automatic defense system activated by unknown forces. It was not hostile by nature, but had been triggered by something or someone seeking to protect a secret long buried. The teams worked together to study the artifact, unlocking fragments of its language and purpose. Slowly, a story emerged of a great civilization that had once united many worlds, but whose legacy had been lost to time. Lyra and Hayes realized this discovery could unite their peoples further, or tear them apart. The knowledge was powerful, but it demanded wisdom. As they prepared to return, the artifact's systems hummed once more. A soft light enveloped the ruins, and a message echoed through the ship's communication channels, not in words, but in feeling. It spoke of balance, of guardianship, and of the fragile thread that held the galaxy's future together. The expedition returned to Imperial space changed, not just by the discovery, but by the bonds formed among them. Back at the council chamber, Lyra and Hayes presented their findings. The ancient warning was clear. The galaxy needed peace, understanding, and care. The council listened, some with hope, others with skepticism. But the seed had been planted. Outside, stars shone brighter. Humanity and the Empire stood at a crossroads, No longer enemies, but uncertain allies walking toward a future shaped by shared history and new challenges. The story was far from over, but the path ahead glimmered with possibility.